Hey everyone, hope everyone is good. This is the very first nonfiction deep dive, and I decided to do the first nonfiction deep dive with White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. I've been wanting to read this for quite some time. Now that race is such a huge issue in the country, racism, it's a perfect time to read it. I am not a perfect person. I definitely have seen things in the book already that I do and have said that is wrong. So I want to make that clear. I'm reading this because I want to learn to be better. All right. And I want to say that when I say we, that I'm talking about we as white people. And when I'm going to really try to make it, when I talk about myself, I make that clear that I'm talking about myself. It's going to be a difficult conversation. If you're here live, go ahead and put some comments up in the chat. After the fact, after the video is uploaded, put some comments in the description box or in the comments below. I do these because I want to talk about the books, and I want to try to get the information stuck in my brain, and that I actually learn something, and I don't just read something to add another number to my Goodreads. Alright, so it's White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. There is an introduction, a preface, there's a foreword at the very beginning, so there was a lot to read before I even got to the actual book. So this is just covering about the first 30 minutes of the audiobook, which is right up to the beginning of chapter 1. So this is covering the foreword, the identity politics definition part, and the introduction. And here are the notes that I put down. And if I need to make anything more clear, let me know. Whiteness has generally remained constant, while race has been other people's burden. So that basically means that us white people, our whiteness has basically stayed the same, and we never had to burden racism or having to talk about race because of the culture being a white culture. Whiteness is most destructive or / useful when its very existence is denied. So when we don't talk about whiteness as being a race and deny that it's even a thing, that's when it causes the most issues and gives the most to people of white people. White people don't think of each other so much as being white. If we are white, we just don't think about us white people. It just isn't a thing, and we need to think about that at times. All politics are rested in identity politics. Okay, so I'm going to make a confession here. Years ago, I was one of the people that did not like identity politics. I thought that it should focus on the individual. And also, even with racism, I was one of the type of people that wanted to focus on individuals. And so far, I've changed over the years, but this book is even going to challenge that even more and change me even more. Identity politics is not a bad thing, because all politics is about identity in one way or another. Whiteness is the clearest example of identity politics there is. The benefits you get from being white is the clearest example of identity politics. Identity politics, the definition that is in here is the focus on the barriers specific groups face in their struggle for equality. Identity politics is the reason why non-white men have gained anything during our history, or not even non-white men, non-white anyone. Identity politics is the reason why they've gained any traction in our society. Women's voting, slavery abolishment, civil rights movement, all those LGBT things, all of those things are from identity politics. So I need to think in my head that identity politics is a great thing and not necessarily think of it as a talking point. Identity politics is the reason why, I already said that. Those in power are similar, so there's going to be an implicit bias. Women had to call on men to get the right to vote. Groups still have to call primarily on men in power to gain rights, to gain new things. And that was, I knew that, but I didn't really think about it in that way. I must think of myself as part of that white collective. Dominant culture is white culture. And it's hard for me to see as a white person. And when I read about that part in the book, I tried to imagine what a dominant culture of a different race would be if like black culture was a dominant culture, how like different it would be. So that just says that there is a white culture, dominant culture. Passing refers to being able to blend in with white people. There's not a term to blend in with black people, and that says a lot. For many white people, the suggestion that there is a being white triggers defensiveness. So then there was a part about withdrawing from the stress of racism, and this really spoke to me or challenged me, because that is my my default is to try to withdraw from it because of stress, and that might be the part of the problem. Like I might be part of the problem just because I don't want to talk about it. Nice people versus mean people is not the point. So this is very powerful for me. Most of my life I saw racism as racist, mean people, non-racist, nice people. But racism in general should be talked about as a system. And nice people versus mean people is not the point. We can still benefit from racism if you are white, if you don't accept that there's systematic racism, and if you're nice to black people, you still benefit from racism being white. We need to realize what we get due to the systematic racism. Racism must be seen as a system. It isn't good versus bad people. Racism is defined really badly in our culture at the moment, and that's what people are trying to change. White people have to accept that racism is unavoidable. It will happen. Most people will never believe that they are a racist, yet they prosper from racist things. So we need to get in our mind that we profit from racism, even though we might not be racist ourselves, but we still have racism tendencies because we're in a culture that is based on whiteness. So it's going to be tough at times to swallow some of this stuff, and I agree with it all. It's just I definitely saw myself in some of those examples she talked about with the people that went to like meetings on racism. They would get upset about it. I've done that in the past. I definitely don't want to do that again. So lastly, white progressives are also a big part of the issue, and that's who she is writing to for the most part, is white progressives, for them to be even, I guess, more woke. would be the term. So that is the beginning of the book. My first impressions and some of the notes that I took. So far, so good. I'm going to enjoy this book. I think I'm going to be challenged. I think I'm going to change. I think that it's going to be good to read it twice to really get things ingrained in my brain. And so I'm going to be doing this each day at 8:30, just talking for about 10 minutes about what I read, listening to the audiobook for about 30 minutes a day. It's about 20 pages in the Kindle book. So if you'd like to join me, that would be fantastic. If you watch the replays of these and you read the book, still put stuff in the comments below. That would be good. All right, I'll talk to everyone another day.